It sounds like you're looking to make the move to Utah, or perhaps you're moving within it. Well, this video is a tour of the state of Utah in a way that so many people have mentioned to me that they love this style of video because it truly helps them. In fact, every single day, people are reaching out to me through my YouTube channel and they're researching where they might want to live. And if this is you, this is the right video, because today I'm going to break down the full map of the state of Utah. I'm going to show you all of the areas that you need to know and understand if you're looking to make the move to or within the state of Utah. And I'm going to talk about the 5 metropolitan areas in the state. I'm going to talk about and cover the fastest growing areas of the state and where those fast growing areas are going to be in 10, 15 years and beyond. I'm also going to talk about the geography and the topography of Utah and bust some myths that a lot of people think of when they think of living out west in the western United States, and answer some critical questions. Number one, why is the land in Utah so incredibly expensive? Why in the world are so many people making the move to Utah? Why is it so incredibly popular? And it has been for over 20 years. So why is that? And what does Utah's future look like if indeed this growth continues? And of course it will. So in this video, I'm going to break down the full map tour of the state of Utah. So stay tuned. Okay, so let's get started. In this video, I'm going to share the map with you for the vast majority of the video. So let's get started. All right, so here you can see I've first highlighted the entire state of Utah. And the first thing that pops out to most people when they're thinking about making the move to Utah is, why is land so expensive here? When you look at the western United States, land in Utah is more expensive than every other state western side of the nation. We are number 6th overall in the nation for the cost of land after 5 East Coast states as well as Hawaii. Utah's land is incredibly expensive. So let's start there and let me explain why. Well, to begin, let's look at the state as a whole. If we zoom in here just slightly, we can see the entire western third or western fourth of the state here. You can see as you zoom in, this is covered by what we call the West Desert and the Bonneville Salt Flats. These salt flats and this particular area of the state of Utah is completely uninhabitable. These are areas that are not developed, and they probably will never be developed because this is an area that is completely foreign, not only human life, but a lot of life overall. This is a really cool place to go visit. It's one of the most Instagram-worthy locations in the state of Utah. If you're looking for that really cool adventure to step out onto the salt flats and experience what living in a different world might feel like, this is a perfect place for that. But this basically takes about 1/4 of our state and completely makes it unusable or uninhabitable. In addition to that, if we go down to southern Utah and we explore the southern region, you see not only in the southeast quadrant of the state, but also in this deeper south portion of the state here, we have a total of 5 national parks. We have Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon. We also have Canyonlands and Arches. We also have Capitol Reef. These 5 national parks, along with national recreation areas like Lake Powell, as well as many, many dozens of state parks. This particular area of the state, if you look at this, overall, there's about 1/3, maybe 1/4 of the state that's pretty much unusable and uninhabitable or unable to be developed as well. So as you zoom back out, if you take those 2 factors into consideration, you've already lost more than half of the land in the state of Utah just for those 2 reasons alone. So what's remaining? If you look throughout the state of Utah, you can see these mountains stretching all the way from southern Utah northward right through the center of the state and running right through the heart of the population centers here in Utah along the Wasatch Front. And you also notice another mountain range here to the east, which is the Uinta Mountains. We have 2 major mountain ranges here in Utah that are the first mountain ranges that make up the Rocky Mountains, and that's the Wasatch Mountain Range right here along the Wasatch Front and the Uinta Mountains. The Uinta Mountains happen to be Utah's tallest and largest mountains, but we also have a lot of different mountains and small mountain ranges throughout the state. So when we factor in the West Desert and everything that's been removed there, as well as the southern portion of the state that is filled with national parks and state parks and the red rocks of southern Utah, it doesn't leave a whole lot after you factor in all of the mountains where we can actually inhabit and live. And as we look throughout the state, we have to break down the population areas here in the state as being 5 metropolitan areas. And then we have a couple of other pockets where some people do choose to live in these smaller rural areas. Let's start with the rural areas. Number 1, we have this region down here just southeast of the Wasatch Front. Down here, we have the towns of Price and Helper and Huntington. These little towns are what we call Carbon County and Emery County, right in the heart of the state. And we call this Eastern Utah because this is really the focus focus of where the coal industry used to really be a major player with its economy. This area in the state is kind of depleted in its resources as well as its economy due to the fact that these coal mines have closed down, as well as power plants and other things. So it's not quite the thing or the place that it used to be. So if you're looking for somewhere very affordable to live in the state of Utah, this is one of those regions that's a little bit outside of where most people would ever consider living if they want access to the city. It is quite the drive to make your way up to Salt Lake City. So being a couple hours removed really eliminates it as a possibility for most people. Then we have another region here just directly east of the Wasatch Front. We have a large area here with some small towns like Vernal and Roosevelt and Duchesne. This area, this region of the state is not somewhere where you see very many people moving to. I've only helped a couple of families make the move to Utah and live in these areas, and both of them chose to live down here in Carbon and Emery counties. This particular region up here is another one of those regions where some people do choose to live, but it's definitely very rural, and I don't see or anticipate very many people moving to Utah to live in these areas specifically. Now, with that said, let's move on to the 5 metropolitan areas. We're going to start from the smallest up to the largest. So let's start with the smallest. That's all the way on the northern portion or the northern edge of the state up here in Cache Valley, and the town of Logan is the center of this small metropolitan area. Logan just has a little over 100,000 residents, and then there's a whole slew of small mountain towns, farming communities around it, and it's honestly a beautiful place. It's home to Utah State University. Its proximity to Bear Lake is phenomenal. There's so many cool outdoor opportunities and possibilities here. It's a really cool way of life, but it definitely feels removed from the hustle and bustle and the attractions that come to the cities along the Wasatch Front. Next up, in terms of the next smallest metropolitan area, is down in the southwestern corner of the state, and that is St. George. St. George and the surrounding towns, including Santa Clara and Washington, these areas are exploding in growth. In fact, the areas down here are really well known for their really warm winters, year-round golf, palm trees. It's definitely a different climate, more akin to that which you would experience down in Las Vegas. This is a beautiful version of Las Vegas, in my opinion. I think it's much more beautiful, and its proximity to Zion National Park makes it a major player for tourism, and it brings people here that are looking to retire. It also brings people that have already made their money and they're looking for a place to plant roots and to make home. This area is continuing to explode all the way down to the border between Utah and Arizona. In fact, if you look down here, you see these developments stretching all the way down to the very border between Utah and Arizona, and that's only going to continue as this area continues to grow and to thrive. So those are the 2 smallest metropolitan areas. The final 3 are centered around Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is commonly looked at as a small city, but when you factor in the entire metropolitan region, which is a mixture of 3 metropolitan areas that are all accessible within 45 minutes from Salt Lake City, this is where the vast majority of Utahns reside. Now, Utah as a whole has just about 3.5 million residents, of which about almost 2.7 million people choose to make home here in these 3 metropolitan areas centered around Salt Lake City. Now, just because these 3 metropolitan areas are very close in proximity doesn't mean there's not a lot of differences between them. In fact, there's a lot of differences between these areas. And later on in the video, towards the end, I'm going to share where the biggest growth opportunities are and where you're going to likely see the biggest ROI if you're looking for that return on an investment or a property if you're making the move here. This investment zone is what I like to call it, is just outside of the growth zone. And I'm going to share those with you later on. But let's get started and talk about the 3 major metropolitan areas along the Wasatch Front. Okay, so when I say the words Wasatch Front, what does that mean? The Wasatch Front is what we call the areas where we live towards the western side of the Wasatch Mountain Range. And the Wasatch Mountain Range extends all the way from the northern edge of Utah up to the north, all the way down well past Provo and down into this region. This mountain range is absolutely world-renowned for skiing, for snowboarding, winter sports. This is just an amazing place to live, and those mountains are breathtaking. In fact, when you see these mountains from Street View on Google, for example, let me zoom in really quick. If you do look at these mountains from the Street View, as you look through the lens of Google's images here, let me just pull up a good example of this. I think it's fair to say, when you look at these images and you see these mountains off in the distance, they don't look all that large. but in real life, they are so much bigger than what they look like here in these photos. You have to keep in mind camera lenses, especially these very wide angle action camera lenses or these 360 camera lenses that you see on these Google vehicles, just really make those mountains look dwarf in size. They make them look so much smaller than they really are. I think that's worth noting because I've helped a lot of people make the move to Utah, and I've been able to have these conversations with countless people as they've made the move here. And every single one of them, when they get here, they're astounded by how big those mountains really are. It truly is breathtaking. I even have clients to this day that have moved here years ago that still text me pictures as they're driving to work in the morning, and they just snap a picture of those mountains while they're driving and say, I'm still pinching myself. I can't believe I get to live in a place this beautiful. Now, maybe we take that for granted as locals, but I don't think that we should. I think it's fair to say we live in one of the most beautiful states in the nation. Okay, so let's get started with the three major metropolitan areas along the western side of the Wasatch Mountains, which we call the Wasatch Front. Let's start with the biggest. The big one is Salt Lake City. I'm kind of reversing the order here. I was going smallest to biggest, but let's start with Salt Lake City and branch northward and southward in the other regions that we need to learn about. So Salt Lake City is really unique. If you look at Salt Lake City and its makeup in terms of the metropolitan area, you can see it's completely surrounded by mountains on both sides, on three sides, to be honest. Even if you look at the southern portion, these mountain ranges come and extend all the way down to the south. And then we have, of course, the Great Salt Lake to the northwest. Salt Lake County is very much positioned as a limited geographic location that cannot grow endlessly. And I think this is a beautiful thing. I think it's awesome because to me, that means Salt Lake City's never going to be like Houston or an Austin, Texas, for example, or a Phoenix that just continues to sprawl outward and outward and outward. It's limited, and therefore it means we're going to see a lot more concentration of the things that we really like to see in these cities, and it makes everything closer in proximity. It also means that Salt Lake City, as it matures over the decades, is very likely to end up going more vertical as opposed to spreading outward. That's something that a lot of people might not like, but it's definitely going to be a major change in the decades to come. So, as we look at Salt Lake County or the Salt Lake City metropolitan area and its makeup in terms of geography and topography, it's completely surrounded by mountains. And it doesn't matter where you live in this region, you're likely going to have beautiful mountain views no matter where you live. Now, maybe it won't be right out of your front window, but you're going to be able to have these views each and every single day. And as I describe the Salt Lake City metropolitan area, there's a couple things I like to talk about when I do so. Number one, this city was planned in a very incredible and special way. This place was very well planned out back in the mid 1800s when this city was founded. And you'll notice if you zoom into Salt Lake City, the center of the city was focused around what we call Temple Square. Now, you can see here it's all under construction right now as they're completing many years-long renovation to retrofit the temple for seismic upgrades in terms of, keeping this temple standing in the case that we might have a large earthquake. But this entire Temple Square is currently under construction in terms of renovating it to make it more inviting, to make it a place and an attraction where people want to come from all over the world. In fact, the most visited place in Utah is Temple Square, with over 5.5 million people per year. So this is one of those really big tourist attractions that people come from all over the world to experience Temple Square. So why am I talking about that? Well, the city was planned around this square. And if we zoom out just a little bit, you'll notice, and maybe it would be better if I could put this graphic overlaying on top of this map, but I don't have that prepared. We here in Salt Lake City have the largest city blocks of any city in the United States. We also have the widest streets of any city in the United States. What does this mean? It means that you can actually move around the city much easier. Think about this. If you're in the middle of a dense American city with narrow streets, you're oftentimes left with one-way streets going either way. You're also going to notice that you can't get around because there's just so many more streetlights. Well, here in Salt Lake City, we have the unique aspect of having very wide streets to the point where you can see here there's lots of room for multiple lanes of traffic in both directions, as well as parking garages underneath the ground. And as you look through these streets, you can see there's even been room to add not only lanes for traffic and bikes, but also for the light rail system here for trains to run through the heart of the city. And as you look through these areas of the city, it's really astounding how incredibly large not only the city blocks are, but how wide those streets are. I also want to make sure that I point out the grid system that Salt Lake City and the entire county was built upon. So it doesn't matter if you live in the heart of Salt Lake City or if you live way out here in South Jordan or Harriman or out in Draper, the streets are numbered based on how far they are from Temple Square. So if you go right back into Salt Lake City and you go right down to the heart of Salt Lake City to Temple Square, you'll notice there's a street to the north of it called North Temple. There's one on the west called West Temple. And to the south, of course, as you can imagine, is South Temple. The one to the east is actually Main Street, so that does not exist. But everything in the city is based on and predicated upon its distance from Temple Square, which means no matter where you're located, you know how many blocks away from the heart of the city you are, and it makes really easy navigation to get around from one place to another. It does take a little getting used to in terms of knowing and understanding that you've got to get to know the grid system rather than memorize a sequence of names for the streets. I think it really makes Salt Lake City unique, and it's definitely easy to get around once you get used to it. And I'm going to do a future video where I'm really highlighting the history of Salt Lake City and talking about these things in more depth to kind of highlight what makes it so unique. Okay, so let's go back to the map and just explore just a little bit more. I like to really highlight not only the streets and the grid system, but if I talk about the quadrants of Salt Lake County and the Salt Lake City metropolitan area, by dividing it up into 4 quadrants is the way I like to do it. So if I look at right here in the center of the valley here, we have I-15, and then right here we have 215, the Belt Route. So let's just kind of divide this entire valley into 4 quadrants. We'll do it right here across I-215 to cut the northern and southern ends. And then right here along I-15, we'll go on the east side and the west side. And the first region, of course, is the northeastern quadrant here of Salt Lake City, which of course includes Salt Lake City itself, along with all of its beautiful neighborhoods. And if you're online and you're Googling to find out where are the best neighborhoods in Salt Lake City, you're going to find a lot of those neighborhoods that pop up right here within the heart of Salt Lake City in this northeast quadrant, whether that be Sugar House or Liberty Wells or East Bench or Federal Heights or Yellcrest or the Avenues. These are some of the most appealing neighborhoods in Salt Lake City. And of course, these are the areas where you're going to find a lot of older homes. And if I just kind of click over to Street View here really quickly, you can see a lot of these older neighborhoods with really, established tree-lined streets, and a lot of more mature neighborhoods with lots of really nice homes that are not only well preserved, but also many homes that are being upgraded and or renovated and rebuilt, like this one here. The neighborhoods of Salt Lake City, just like so many other cities throughout the country, are absolutely beautiful, but they're going to be older homes, and these homes come with this pretty hefty price tag as well. Now, if we continue down to the southeastern quadrant of the city or of the metropolitan area, we move down into Cottonwood Heights and Sandy and Draper. These areas are newer than the areas to the north. And as we saw the population of Salt Lake County progress over the decades and the centuries now, we noticed that the oldest homes start closer to the city here. And as we move southward, the homes get a little less old as you continue to move southward. So by the time you get down to Cottonwood Heights and into Sandy and Draper, most of the homes are built in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even the 2000s as you get closer down to Draper. That's not to say that you're not going to have a lot of infill development where new development is still happening. That still does happen throughout all of these areas, but for the most part, these are homes and neighborhoods that are quite established. Okay, next up on the list is the northwest quadrant of the Salt Lake Valley. Let's talk about this area in this region. This is the kind of the heartbeat of the county in terms of its economic and industrial development. This is also going to be the home for the new inland port that takes up a great portion of this land right here next to the Salt Lake City International Airport. And of course, it also includes the very airport that I just mentioned, the brand new Salt Lake City International Airport. This region, this northwest region, in terms of residential living down here in West Valley and in Magna and Kearns, these are some of the less desirable places or the most inexpensive areas to live close to the city, only because the homes are smaller and they were built to be more budget-friendly homes. And so these neighborhoods, what we're seeing a great revival in these neighborhoods as many people are choosing to purchase these homes due to the proximity to their workplace or the city itself. The gentrification is also happening. We're seeing a lot of redevelopment and infill development that's going to continue. These areas closer to the city will just get more expensive as the years go on. Now, since we are up in this quadrant, I want to bring up and talk about this airport. So if you haven't visited Salt Lake City in recent years, you haven't seen what's been ranked as one of the top 5 airports in the world. It's one of the most beautiful airports and cleanest airports you'll ever fly in and out of. And of course, Salt Lake City did something very unique. And this is something that I'd like to tell people, because Utah as a state is definitely, in my opinion, much better than most other states. Utah does things quite differently, and there's reasons for that. And one of the things that really jumps out to me is when Salt Lake City needed to build this new airport, they already had the funds to do so. And I can't think of any other state that's actually done things this way. And despite the fact that this is one of the most expensive airports ever built in the United States, it was fully paid for before they broke ground. Why? Because they actually took the money that they were collecting from the airlines and investing that money over decades to prepare themselves for this new airport. And they did so responsibly, believe it or not. And that airport and the funding for it was already in place before they broke ground. Now, that airport is absolutely beautiful. It's clean. It's awesome. It's really convenient to get in and out of because of its proximity, just 5 minutes, 7 minutes away from downtown Salt Lake City. But it's still under construction. The next phase will be completed late next year, and then the Salt Lake City International Airport will be complete. I would highly encourage you, if you haven't flown here, you should definitely try it out. I've actually had people reach out to me that weren't even considering moving to Utah, but they decided to at least put it on their radar because they were on a layover flying through the Salt Lake City International Airport. I even had one family actually make the move here when that very thing happened to them. But let's keep going. Let's check back into the map here. We've talked about the northwest quadrant. Now, the last quadrant we need to talk about is the southwest quadrant. The southwest is the newest portion of the Salt Lake City metropolitan area. It also happens to be where I live, in the heart of South Jordan, in a neighborhood known as Daybreak. So these particular neighborhoods throughout South Jordan, West Jordan, and into Riverton and Harriman and Bluffdale, for the most part, newer developments and newer areas. We're seeing a lot of growth take place down here. We're also noticing that the infrastructure that really is critical to support this growth is very well planned out here in the southwest quadrant. And it's a driving force as to how this redevelopment is happening in the northwest quadrant to accommodate the traffic needs of the residents that make this place home. I also want to point out that if you zoom out from the Salt Lake City metropolitan area, you'll notice that the vast majority of this region is full already, but we still have quite a bit of land here along the west end or the west side of the valley. We call this area, as it rolls through the foothills of the Oquirrh Mountains, which this is the mountain range to the west of Salt Lake City. These foothills make up what we call the West Bench. Just as we have an area to the east that we call the East Bench, we also have what we call the West Bench. And we're noticing a lot of new developments coming in place and coming online right now as we speak. One of my favorites is this one right here. It's called Terrain. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I put up a video on my channel about this particular development. It's a short 8-minute video, but it just touches on what's to come here in this new community that's known as Terrain. It's probably got about 70 homes already built over here, but there's going to be a total of 3,000 new homes with amazing amenities throughout the community to provide common spaces and community gardens and libraries and all the things that people really love these days in their community. And honestly, these foothills are beautiful. As you drive through these areas, let me see if Google's going to let me show you a little taste of this. You might want to check out my video if it would be more helpful, but you can see here, some of that new construction is already kicking off on these Google Map images. But this is one of those communities that's incredibly appealing for so many. And it's known as Terrain. They're even building a temple right up here on top of this little knob or this hill. And this area, as it continues to grow, is going to attract a lot of people. But as you can see, as I zoom out, there's a lot of different areas that are going to be booming and growing here in this area. In fact, just this week, I sold a home to a new client of mine moving here from Pittsburgh, right here in this very neighborhood. They couldn't be more excited. So if you're watching, congratulations, you guys. I'm really excited for your new home here and your new life in Utah. So that's to say that the vast majority of the growth that's yet to come to the Salt Lake Valley is going to be on the western side here. We're going to see a lot of more luxury homes being built over here than anyone ever thought possible. We're also going to see probably an increase of around 250 to 300,000 more residents in the Salt Lake City metropolitan area as this area matures and completely develops. That's going to take a couple of decades, but this area will continue to grow, and the rest of the metropolitan area will likely continue to get a little more densely populated in the urban center of Salt Lake City, which will then also increase the population as well. So So I think we've touched on the Salt Lake City metropolitan area quite extensively. I just want to touch really quickly, just west of Salt Lake City, we have another valley or county that's known as Tooele County. The Tooele Valley here has the towns of Tooele and Stansbury Park and Lake Point and Erta, Grantsville. These are really fast growing areas. And as you can see, the greatest asset we have here is a lot of land. This land is going to be a driving force for the growth that feeds into Salt Lake City, because this is a really short drive to get into Salt Lake City and this industrial region, as well as the new inland port that's being built here as well. So that's not worth ignoring. I think a lot of the future growth will be happening over here just west of Salt Lake City. And I can't talk about Salt Lake City or Utah and not talk about one of the most beautiful, well-known, and world-famous areas, and that's up in Park City. Now, when we look at Park City and the mountain towns to the east of the Wasatch Mountains, we refer to those areas as the Wasatch Back, just as we call these areas to the west the Wasatch Front, because they are on the front edge or the front leading side of the Rocky Mountains, which is, of course, the Wasatch Mountains here. We call this area the Wasatch Back. There are a lot of towns here. Now, Park City is the most expensive area here in the state of Utah, with homes that are priced well over $10, $20, and even $30 million. These properties are world renowned because people want property in a place like this where they can go skiing or they can have that mountain lifestyle and yet be incredibly close, within 30 to 40 minutes of downtown Salt Lake City and the Salt Lake City International Airport. You can't get into Jackson Hole or Aspen, Colorado, or Lake Tahoe into a major international airport and be that quickly into your destination. So it really makes Utah unique, and it positions itself really well for a lot of luxury growth as we continue to move forward. And there's so much more beyond Park City. But before we move on beyond Park City, I want to highlight the vast majority of the growth that's happening up here is to the east of Park City. Over here, in and around the Jordanelle Reservoir, we see a ton of growth happening right here with the new ski resort that's being built that was acquired by Deer Valley. We're also noticing the new golf course over here that's a Tiger Woods golf course. We also see homes to the east of this reservoir overlooking Deer Valley and the Jordanelle Reservoir. And these homes are centered around communities like this one in Tuahe that are centered around a beautiful golf course. And you'll see properties here that are going up that are 10, 18, $20 million all over these mountains. So we see a lot of that luxury growth extending outward from Park City and experiencing the real beauty of the Wasatch Back. If we move to the south in this little city or town of Heber, there's a lot of growth happening down here as well as a lot of pushback from locals because they don't want to see their small town get too big, but it's inevitable. It is coming. The growth is happening. And it's one area right here that I'm really interested in is this particular region just in between Jordanelle Reservoir and Heber up in these hills. There's a large amount of land here, and the development that is starting and kicking off here is called Wasatch Hollow. And it's projected that over the next 2 decades, there will be an additional 24,000 homes scattered throughout this particular area here. You can even see that growth is already starting right here on that northern side. This is a really high growth area in the state of Utah. It is going to be more expensive than some of the other areas, but this will not be the ultra luxury expensive properties that you see closer to Park City. But the Wasatch Back is not just Park City or even Heber City. It extends all the way north through these other small towns of Camas and Oakley and up into Wanship. And if you go further, one of my favorite places that I've sold numerous homes to are up in the northern portion, up in Morgan County, here in the towns of Mountain Green and Morgan. I've sold homes in these areas, and every time I go here, I think it's one of the most beautiful, underrated places in the state. The altitude is not too high. You're about 5,000 feet elevation, so you don't have to deal with those crazy winters like you would if you were at a much higher elevation. It's just a really beautiful place to live, and clients that I've helped move here, in fact, one family moved here from Maryland right here. So if you're watching, Dan, that's you. There's also the most expensive property in the state of Utah right now is just down the road from Morgan, and it's listed at over $70 million. So these particular areas are going to attract more luxury buyers over time. And the reasons for that, because it is so underrated currently, but the reasons for that are a couple of things. It's twofold. Number one, it's easy access into Salt Lake City. To get down this little canyon takes 8 minutes. And then to get down into Salt Lake City, you might be 30, 40 minutes away from the city. So the access to the city is still there, just like it is in Park City, but you also have beautiful scenery, and you're looking at the backside of the Wasatch Mountains, which are absolutely breathtaking. And you have the #1 rated ski resort in the entire, in all of North America. in Snow Basin right here. So it's just minutes away from Snow Basin. And there's another private Wasatch Peak Ranch ski resort right here. This is more of a private ski resort. And this is really attracting a lot of people that have the money to go play in these places. And if you go a little further north to these mountain towns of Eden and Huntsville, the real estate prices really jump through the roof as they are focused around Pineview Reservoir, with a couple more ski resorts in Powder Mountain and Nordic Valley. These are areas that are incredibly mature already in terms of pricing. But for me personally, my favorites are right here in Mountain Green and down throughout Morgan right here. This is one of those underrated places that if I wanted that mountain lifestyle, I would definitely consider. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of these pockets in the state of Utah. We've got two more metropolitan areas to cover, one of which is to the north of Salt Lake City and one is to the south. So let's talk about those real quick. If we move up north into Davis and Weber counties, we can see this particular region, there's just about 800 and something thousand people that currently reside here. But this is an area that's going to be a major growth area for many years. It is the least expensive of the three major metropolitan areas along the Wasatch Front. So the Ogden metropolitan area is growing very rapidly. And I've even created an entire video about Ogden just about 3 months ago. If you want to check that video out, that video really highlights what Ogden is all about. It talks about the culture and how different it is. It's a totally different lifestyle and way of life than what you'll find in Salt Lake County, as well as Provo and Utah counties. It's very attractive, and there's some really charming areas, especially in the downtown area of Ogden as well. And while we're talking about Ogden, if I just zoom into this map here really quick, I can show you right here in the heart of Ogden. One of my favorite things about Ogden is just coming into the downtown area and just kind of experiencing the charm of, kind of that mid-century little small town area. And these little shops are booming. This is not a rundown area of the city by any stretch of the imagination. And I just think it's really cool to see a place like this thrive, and the people are out, the coffee shops and all the different places that people want to go to. They're right here in the heart of Ogden, and it's really charming. Now, if I zoom out just a little bit more, the growth, as you can imagine, it's happening on the western side. You can see a lot of farmland out here. You can see a lot of different areas that are yet to be developed, and you see a lot of developments already happening. If I zoom in here, you can see these lots are being subdivided. Beautiful new homes are being built, some of which have swimming pools like this one. There's just so much room for growth in this region. And that's really appealing because the money that you would spend on real estate up here north of Salt Lake City is going to get you more for the money than what you're going to find in Salt Lake County or even south of Salt Lake County in Utah County. So again, it is the least expensive of the three major metropolitan areas. And I want to highlight the transportation here as well, the infrastructure. For most of my life, the biggest problem in terms of traffic in Utah was right here. And you can kind of imagine why. It kind of bottlenecks right here through the heart of Davis County. And a lot of these people that have to, come into Salt Lake City to go to work or commute, it really was a bottleneck. But Utah does things well, right? Remember that. We actually built another highway adjacent to the freeway here in I-15. And in recent years, they've actually branched this out into 3 freeways that run northward up into Davis and Weber counties. We have the West Davis corridor here, that's the newest. We have the main freeway here in I-15 that runs all the way north up into Canada. And then we also have this Highway 89 that's been converted to a freeway style highway so that you actually have 3 options to get through this region. And it's greatly improved the traffic here. We also see currently there's a lot of construction happening along I-15, and there will be far more construction coming in preparation for the 2034 Olympics, because as I showed you earlier up here in Snow Basin Ski Resort, that's going to be a major player and venue for the 2034 Winter Games. So we see a lot of that funding come into play to improve these highways prior to the Olympics, which is it's precisely what happened prior to the 2002 Winter Olympics as well. But if you drive through this area, you're going to notice some construction right now. They're doing massive upgrades and repositioning of this freeway to give a lot more space and make this area flow that much better. So the Ogden metropolitan area, don't snooze on it. It's a hidden gem in the state of Utah. I would totally live here. One of my favorite places, if I'm really being honest, within the Ogden metropolitan area is on this northern edge, right up against the hills or the foothills here on this northern bench. We have the areas of North Ogden and Pleasant View. These are my favorite areas. And on a clear day, you can actually see all the way down across the lake and into Salt Lake County, and you can see the mountains down here in Salt Lake County. It's really cool. So now we've covered 4 metropolitan areas. We have a 5th. I'm saving the fastest growing county in the state of Utah for last, and that is south of Salt Lake City in the Provo-Orem metropolitan area. Now, if I type in here, Utah County, just to kind of highlight the size of this county, it's a bit larger than most counties in terms of the major metropolitan areas, but a lot of this land is not going to be developed because it's up in the mountains. But as you can see, there's a lot of land west of Utah Lake that is all part of Utah County, and this is going to be the biggest player for growth in the next 10 to 20 years. I've talked about this in numerous videos. I've even recently posted a video of a new development out here in the western side of Eagle Mountain that's called Firefly, and Firefly is going to have 8,000 homes that are built here. It's a massive community, and this area is thriving and growing like crazy. I've had a number of clients move here in the last few months to Eagle Mountain. In fact, one family came from Colorado, from Grand Junction, and I'm hoping they're enjoying their new home as they've moved there just a couple of months ago. So guys, if you happen to be watching, I really hope you love your new home, and I hope you are enjoying the growth despite the growing pains that come along with it. The really cool thing about this particular region, despite the fact that there's not a whole lot of commercial development there yet, it is planned, it will happen. The freeways, the infrastructure, all of those things are going to come. But when you buy in these areas that are just outside of the growth areas to the point where you're getting ahead of things in the beginning stages of these developments, you're going to see the biggest appreciation in your property over the next 5 and 10 years. So Utah County as a whole, it's centered around the city of Provo, which has a small urban core. And outside of Provo, you have a lot of these smaller towns that are all over the place, both to the south and the north, along the eastern side of Utah Lake. Provo is a really clean little city, and to the south of it, you have Springville and Mapleton. Mapleton here to the south of Provo has some breathtaking properties. Some of the neighborhoods here are just absolutely amazing, and some of the homes here are, honestly, they're mansions. There's some amazing homes down here. And if you look even further south of Provo, down here in Elk Ridge and Woodland Hills, anywhere along the benches, anytime you get up on those benches of those mountains, you'll see more and more expensive properties. As you'll notice here, you'll see a lot of luxury homes being built up against those mountains. And maybe that's not attainable for all, but it's definitely one of those things that's super appealing to the people that have the budget to accommodate that. So Utah County, it is Utah's fastest growing county. It will continue to be the fastest growing county, in my opinion, for many years to come, mainly because of not only Saratoga Springs, but Eagle Mountain. I think these two cities, especially Eagle Mountain, for the years to come, is going to keep this county and this metropolitan area as the fastest growing. Now, my hope is that these visual aids, this map tour, is super helpful for you. Now, I have a few people reach out to me every single day, just right here from my YouTube channel, looking to relocate here, and we schedule time to get on the phone and get on a video call. And I really love sharing the map when I get on those video calls, because it really gives people so much clarity as to where they might want to live prior to making that visit. And then we can really deep dive and explore the different regions to make sure that we find the perfect home for you. Moving to Utah is a beautiful thing. It's awesome. But it's not if you land in the wrong place. You need an expert guide to make sure that you're learning about the areas that you need to learn about so that not only you don't miss out on the perfect spot for you, but you don't end up in a spot that you regret, a place that could cost you thousands, if not tens of thousands, to make that change later on once you've arrived. And this is something that my team and I are experts with, and we would love to be your real estate resource of choice. Reach out to me. You can find my contact information down in the description below, or you can book a video call with us in that link that you'll find on the pinned comment on this and every video. And hopefully, if this is helpful for you, I would love it if you would drop a comment down below and let me know what you'd like to see in future videos. I read and reply to every single comment that's left here on my YouTube channel, and I read those and I take them to heart. I want to make sure that I'm providing as much value to you as possible. And tell me where you're watching from. I'm really curious where people are watching from all over the country and the world. It really helps give me perspective as to what type of information I need to be sharing here on the channel. And if I've earned it, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button. 94% of you are not subscribed to the channel. And if you just took a moment to do so, it would mean the world to me, as it helps me get in front of more people just like you. So please, if I've earned it, hit that subscribe button. And if you're looking to learn more about life in Utah, check out this playlist next. And until the next video, thanks.